Hey guys, welcome back to Salem the Crafting MMO, and in this video we're gonna be going over something about regenning your humours. And it's not about eating food, it's something that's even better. It's about drinking tea. So, drinking tea is something that is very useful in combat, whether you're against other players or against wild animals, or even if you're trying to what's called gate or fence stomping some wild animal. Let's say you can't really defeat an animal, so you sort of run inside your fence and you do an AoE attack, like a stomp move at the edge of your fence. The animal can't get you, but you can stomp the animal, and that's something that's quite possible. But if you run out of yellow bile, you can't stomp anymore, and you're constantly aggroed, so you can't even log out of the game properly or anything like that. So having some teas on hand is very, very useful. Now, you might think, oh, I can't start tea farming because it's gonna take all the high level skills, but don't worry, you don't need to start tea farming to get into tea. The first thing we have to do is actually head on over to the main town in Providence, and I can show you where you can get some tea leaves free of charge. So let's just hop on over to Providence and we'll see where we can go. Alright, here we are in the main town of Providence, and I want you to walk just a little ways this way, along the river, towards the beach, and I want you to sort of go into this back alley, and no, we're not going to the guy who sells snake oils or anything like that. I want you to just sort of go behind this little area where there's this little fireplace back here, which is a very nice place for camping, and you'll see these sort of light green sort of bushes, and ooh, there's a body there. Let's not get near that. But these light green sort of bushes. Now, these things don't always have leaves to pluck. You can see if I right click, this just says uproot. That one also says uproot. If we're lucky, we're gonna be able to find some tea leaves here. If we're not, people have already taken them all. And it seems like all of them have been taken. But, well, one more there. Any chance? No. Okay. So you can see here that it's not always the easiest to get tea leaves, but if you come at off-peak times or just check these once a day, you'll eventually get some, and you're gonna get some green tea leaves. And just see these bushes. There's quite a few of them. And if you actually are able to plant tea, then of course that's something you can always do. But this is where you can always start by getting some free tea. But of course I have already taken some tea beforehand, and there's actually 4 different types of tea. You can see 3 here because I'll explain that in a bit. First things first, let me transport back to my home, and I'll explain how the tea stuff works. Alright, here we are back at home, and now that we're safe and sound, for the most part anyway, I can explain the teas. So, we were unlucky and weren't able to get any tea today, but the tea I got before is going to be useful here in my demonstrations. Now, there's 4 kinds of tea. Now, the problem is, tea doesn't stay fresh for very long. When you pluck the tea leaves off of those tea bushes over in the town, there will be green tea leaves, and green tea leaves can be boiled into green tea. But if you wait about 24 hours, those green tea leaves are going to become wilted tea leaves. So if you just sort of leave them in your inventory or in a box, then they'll become wilted tea leaves. So if you want to make green tea, then you're going to have to, boil it straight away, really. But wilted tea leaves have its other use, and then if you have, you can take a drying rack, and here's the complex part. There's also yellow tea leaves and black tea leaves. So the way that works is if you take a green tea leaf and go to a drying frame, you can put the green tea leaf onto the drying frame, and it will actually start to dry into yellow tea leaves. Now, this is where the tricky part comes in. A yellow tea leaf can continue drying to become black tea leaves. So that's the dangerous part. You can't just, if you want yellow tea leaves, you can't just put green tea leaves on the drying frame and leave it there. It'll become black tea leaves. So you got to sort of take it off before it becomes black tea leaves. So now, why are there 4 different kinds of teas? Well, you got 4 different kinds of humor. So how to make the tea? It's pretty simple. Let me just grab a pot of water. I should have a pot of water somewhere around here. Let me just go get some water to show you. Alright, now I have a clay pot with 5 liters of water. Now, of course, when it comes to boiling these liquids, it's always nice to use a copper pot, but I don't have any metalworking facilities right now. If you use a copper pot, it can actually hold 10 liters of water, so it's of course going to be twice as worth it. But first things first, let's start a fire. If you want to cook up some tea or boil some tea, we're going to need to get a fire going. So let's just grab a few branches here. Now, it doesn't take all that much fire to make tea. So let's just get 3 branches down there. I'm gonna put my clay... actually, no, let me start the fire first. I got these tinder drills. Let's start a fire. And of course, with previous experience, I got 2 tinder drills on me now, because there's always a chance that they'll break, so be careful about that. There we go. We got a nice little fire going. I'm gonna put the clay pot with 5 liters of water on it, and I'm gonna open it up, and I'm gonna put in one of these tea leaves. So let's go ahead and put in the wilted tea leaves, because that's sort of the easiest to make once you get green tea. And you just put one in, and then you wait a while, wait a little bit for it to boil, because now it's gonna make a tea from that. Of course, if you boil green tea leaves, you'll get green tea, and if you boil yellow tea leaves, you'll get yellow tea, and if you boil black tea leaves, you get black tea. Now, what does tea actually do? Well, you can drink tea to restore one of your biles. Actually, just to demonstrate, I'm gonna swap these tea leaves out. I'm gonna put in the black tea leaves, because currently my black bile is quite low. So I'm gonna go ahead and boil that up, and you can see it boils pretty fast. You can see here this sort of clock wipe here. It's already going. So we're just gonna wait a little while, and we're gonna make ourselves some black tea. And then I'll show you the efficacy, really, of how this sort of potion works. Alright, there we go. Now you know that the pot has been turned into tea, because looking at the pot, the tea leaf has disappeared. So now let's go ahead and take the pot off the fire, and you're gonna see it's now 4.5 liters of black tea. Now, of course, you can't just drink black tea as is from the pot anyway. You gotta put it in a bark cup. So a bark cup we've used before for the medicine, but creating a bark cup is pretty easy. You just sort of pick up the clay pot containing the black tea, and I'm gonna right click onto the cup, and it's gonna put 0.2 liters into the cup, and then we have to equip the cup. So let's go ahead and put that in the left slot here in our inventory. And once it's on our equipment here, you can just sort of right-click it and take a sip. And here we go, taking a sip of black tea, and it's gonna add a bonus here, black bile regeneration, and my black bile is gonna start going up here. So it's quite slow. But with each sip, there's some pros and cons. With each sip, it sort of increases sort of its effectiveness, but also the duration of, you can see this plus sign in the top left, there's a bar. So taking another sip would sort of increase its duration. Now, the problem with drinking, just universally drinking anything in Salem, is you get this quaffed and quenched debuff. Now, it's not really a debuff, it's just sort of a limiter. Now, you can see there's a sort of a small number 30 that it says that, because with each sip it adds 10, and I took a few sips of green tea before this, so I'm now at 30. Now, don't have to worry about this too much early on, because the maximum number, as far as I know, is 20,000. But the only way to reduce or remove quaffed and quenched is to go into gluttony mode. You can't just go into gluttony mode and eat a random thing. Like here, I can go into gluttony mode right now and eat this, let's eat a hickory nut. It adds the full and fed up, but it doesn't affect quaffed and quenched. You actually have to eat enough stuff, which I don't have on me right now, to actually remove or sort of counter the effects of quaffed and quenched. So this drinking mechanic is sort of something where you have to balance drinking with eating, or at least drinking with gluttony anyway. But this is really, really useful in terms of healing. You can see my black bile is slowly regenerating here, and although it's slow, you can see it lasts a long time. Now, this, of course, is going to be super useful in combat, where you run out of yellow bile, or just in general, if your health is constantly regenerating, then it's going to be much better. And just to test this here, I'm going to take another sip of this bark cup. Here we go. It's added up to 40 quaffed and quenched now, and the bar has increased, but my black bile regeneration it's actually going up faster than before. So with each sip, it sort of hastens the regeneration, increases the duration, but also adds more quaffed and quenched. So this stuff is very useful if you're doing any sort of activity that sort of drains your biles, or like you're farming or doing a lot of work. You might want to use the teas to restore these. So of course, the different teas restore different biles. You have a green tea, which restores your blood. You have the black tea, which I just drank just now, which is restoring black bile. Yellow tea leaves obviously restore your yellow bile, and the wilted tea leaves by leaving the green tea leaves in your pockets or in a box for 24 hours. Wilted tea would then restore your phlegm. So wilted tea is sort of great for working. Black bile is great for staving off fear, or just if you're doing a lot of studying, and you pretty much get it, don't you? But you can see my black bile is now regenerating quite nicely, and considering how slow this bar goes down, I probably drank way too much tea to actually restore my relatively low biles. But that's basically how you make tea. You go into Providence, find those tea bushes, grab some tea leaves if you can, and stock up when you can. But of course, everyone else is doing the same thing. That's why it's a little hard to find the tea leaves. But if you do see the ability to pluck, it'll look just like something like this, a pick leaf sort of thing. Then get the tea leaves that you can, and then if you can, make all 4 different kinds of tea, because once you get a bit of it, like you can see, it creates 4.5 liters of tea, and a cup holds 2 sips, which is 0.2 liters. If you have a stockpile of, like, if you made all 4 teas once, that's gonna last you a while, unless you're actually doing a lot of work. But that pretty much wraps it up. We've made some tea, and we've drank some tea, and you can see its effects. And remember, the effects of regeneration work when you're in combat as well. That's the sort of the main point I'm trying to stress here, because if you eat food while in combat, it doesn't restore your biles. It just sort of freezes there. It'll only start restoring once you're out of combat or whatever animal has unaggroed you. But tea works in all cases. Nothing stops tea from working. It's just sort of a very nice health drink, or in this case, it's quite a powerful drink. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up my explanation and demonstration of making and drinking tea in Salem. Remember, if you'd like to support the channel and check out the game, then there's a referral link down in the description box below. You know how a referral link works. It just helps everyone out, if you want anyway. Alright, so that wraps up tea in Salem. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.